Sally Edwards, and welcome to another episode of Craft the Story. This week we're going to be talking about self-portraits. And depending on when you're watching this video, you may be watching it before or after a community project happens. And that community project is called Pieces of Us. I did Pieces of Us for the first time last year in 2020 as an opportunity to kind of ground myself in where I was at that particular point in time. And so I developed this week-long list of prompts and the invitation to our entire community to take a photo each day alongside me for this memory-keeping documentary self-portrait adventure. And it was really fun, and the images that came out of it were beautiful and vulnerable, and it was just a really cool experience. So if you're watching this video in real time, I'm going to be doing the Pieces of Me / Pieces of Us project starting on Monday, April 5th. And if you're watching this at some other time, it's totally cool. You can do this project at any time. We do have some products available in the shop to support this project if you're looking for something like that. When we did it originally in 2020, we didn't have any, there weren't any products to support it. And most people just shared on Instagram or Facebook, or they just took the pictures for themselves, because a lot of this self-portrait adventure is really personal. It can be really personal. So feel free to share on Instagram, Facebook. You can use the hashtag #AEPiecesOfUs. You could do it here on YouTube if you wanted to, or on your blog, anywhere that you would want to share. Using the hashtag is great because, especially on Instagram, you can see other people that are participating in the project. In terms of a product, what we did is we just made a simple little notebook, says Pieces of Me. It actually has a folio cover that you can get, and this is a patch that we did sell out of the patches, but I think we'll have more of these later in the year. It says Pieces of Life. So the idea is that this folio could hold a couple different projects inside. So this one here in the spring, we're doing Pieces of Me, and then in the fall, we're going to be doing another one that I don't have yet, that I actually just designed, which is going to be called Pieces of Home. So if you're looking for somewhere to hold the photographs and the stories that you write about yourself during Pieces of Me, this little notebook is a quick and easy way to do it. It has specific spots inside the album or inside the notebook itself for your photo, or your photo could go over here, a spot for the date, and then a spot for journaling. It's very simple and very direct. It also has some tips in the front, and the tips that are in the front are the ones that I'm going to talk about in today's video. So I have 8 different topics that I identified that were things that I like to think about, or things that I would suggest if you're new to self-portraits, or if you're coming back to self-portraits, or if you're kind of curious about them and you want to know a little bit more about them. These are just some tips that I put together that have been helpful for me, both in my mind and in my heart too, because self-portraits can be a really interesting adventure. So let's go ahead and dive into these tips, these self-portrait tips for memory keepers. Before we dive into the tips, I want to give you, I want to say 3 different things. Number 1 is make sure to click over to my blog and check out a previous blog post that I did last year, which has a bunch of examples of pictures I've taken of myself over the years for the different prompts that we've established for this project. And let me go ahead and read those prompts to you now. Monday, or day 1, is feet. Day 2 is hands. Day 3 is face forward, like literally letting your face fill the frame in some way or another. Day 4 is eyes closed. Day 5 is half of your face. So the idea of only including a portion of your face, that might come from cropping after you've taken a photograph, or it can also be cropping inside your camera, as you're looking through the viewfinder or looking through the lens. A lot of these, you can take liberties to get really creative with these pictures. Like what is a way that you could only show half your face? So this is a fun project for really getting curious about photography. generally, I think. So day 6 is full body, and then day 7 is reflection. And when I originally designed these prompts, I was thinking of reflection as seeing yourself in something else. So like seeing yourself in a mirror, seeing yourself in a window or glass, or you know, any sort of opportunity of like having your actual physical presence reflected back to you. But some people took it as like reflecting on the last 7 days of doing the project and taking pictures of themselves. So you can really approach it any way you want. These prompts are flexible and can, you know, I want you to make them work for you throughout the process of the 7 days. The other thing that I have in the notebook that I wanted to just go over is like, why would you do this project in the first place? Why participate in this project? And so I'm going to go down these. So number one reason why is to literally get yourself in the story. And we're going to come back to that when I go through the tips. Number 2 is to play and experiment with your camera. The best camera is the one that you have with you, and knowing how to use the camera that you have is one of the ways to become a better photographer and to capture more images. So learning how to use your self timer, learning how to use the different options on your camera can, you know, usually comes about via either reading the manual or Googling your camera to look for additional tips and ideas for using the different options that are available on your specific camera. Number 3 reason why is to develop your own photo voice. Every single one of us has our own unique photo vision, the way we see pictures or the way we look through the lens of the camera, and our own photo voice, the actual pictures we end up taking. And that's something that I actually talk a lot about in my workshop, which is called Lens of Joy, and I'll link that for you guys below. That goes through really kind of all of my thoughts related to taking pictures, my photo workflow, the different ways that I look through the lens of the camera. That's all covered in that workshop. That's called Lens of Joy. So developing our own photo voice. And the way that we develop our own photo voice is via practice, right? All right, and then another thing that we're gonna practice, and all of these projects are about practicing, right? This is how we learn about ourselves, how we grow as human beings is via practice. So the next reason why is to practice loving ourselves using the lens of the camera. And we're gonna talk more about that in the tips section. And then the 5th reason why that I have listed in the notebook is to just play along with the community of storytellers. Whether you are a scrapbooker, a memory keeper or not, this is an opportunity to participate in a community-based project made up mainly of women. There were some men that participated last time too, which I thought was really cool. But really to lift each other up and encourage each other in embracing ourselves as we are. That's a lot of what this self-portrait project is about embracing you as you are right now, rather than wishing for some other version of yourself. And some of this is really important stuff, I think, in our own personal development, alongside with just being a really fun photo project. So let's dive into my tips. All right, number 1 is my main goal in this project is to literally get myself in the story, especially for many memory keepers. Many memory keepers have children or pets or other people that are often the subject of their photographs, right? They are documenting life from behind the camera. So this is a project that invites you to come in front of the camera, which can be uncomfortable, it can be disconcerting, it can feel very vulnerable, but I really want to encourage you to do it. You belong in your story, right? You belong in your story, and being able to see your life reflected back to you is a very powerful experience. And I think one of the reasons why I've continued to do memory keeping over the years, because it helps me learn lessons about myself. So putting myself in the front of the camera is really the main goal with this particular project. So tip number 2 is that idea that the best camera is the one that you have with you, or the one that you have available to you. So whether you're using a DSLR, which is what I used to film with, whether you're using a smaller camera, which is the one that I have forward facing on me here, or whether you're using an iPhone, or maybe you're gonna use a Instax or whatever it is, the best camera is the one that you have with you. And like I mentioned previously, knowing how to use your camera is kind of key. So this might be an awesome opportunity to learn how to use the timer on your iPhone, or maybe learn how to use a remote. So one of the things that I talked about in a recent project, I think it was in Day in the Life, was how if you have an Apple Watch and an Apple phone, there's actually a remote that you can use on your watch that will trigger the shutter on your phone. So that's something that's super cool if you have both of those. If you don't, the iPhone camera has a really easy to use self-timer feature. So self-portraits aren't always just like holding the camera out in front of you and smiling, right? It can absolutely be that way, but there are so many other creative ways that you can approach taking self-portraits. And a lot of what I do prior to using the remote, most of the time what I did is set up my camera. I would set it up on a chair, set it up on a shelf, set it up on the ground. That's something that I've done often too, and set the timer, and then walk back over to my spot, stand there, let the timer go off, and then go back over and check out my pictures. So it's definitely, you are definitely setting up shots. And I think in this particular project and with these kinds of photos, these are more set up shots, right? You have to think about it a little bit more, which can be really fun and a really awesome opportunity to get curious about what happens when you do this. What happens if you try this? What happens if you are walking while you take the picture? Lots and lots of different ways that you can approach this. So the best camera is the one that you have with you. Use this as an opportunity to experiment and play with the self-timer with different options that you might have on your phone. Another thing I would love to encourage you to do related to self-portraits is play around with different angles. So again, instead of always just holding out your phone, and quick tip, if you are going to do some shots like this, it's always better if you hold it up higher. If you hold it up higher, you're gonna have fewer chins, and it's a more flattering angle, I would say, if you're holding up your camera a little bit higher. But aside from that, I would love to invite you to do other things, like to get lower on the ground or to get higher up. Like, what happens if you stand on a chair looking down? What happens if you lay down on the ground and put the camera in front of you? What happens, what are different angles or different ways that you can come at, excuse me, at taking this picture of yourself? So thinking about other ways, rather, other views rather than just straight on. So really, again, getting curious. Another way that you can do that too is by using a tripod. And if you don't have a tripod, you can stack up books, you can set your phone on baskets. It's really all about figuring out ways to make this work and giving yourself that time and space to play around with it. I have taken lots and lots of pictures where I've had a stack of books and I've set my camera up on the top and I've had something propped behind it. Usually trying to take it from this way, because the camera on the back is generally better than the camera on the front if you're using an iPhone. Again, it's going to be a little bit device specific and you're going to want to check that out for yourself. But this is really, I can't emphasize enough the opportunity to get creative with these shots and to maybe think about it in a completely different way. The other tip that I always want to say, and I can't remember if I have it in here, but the other piece of self-portraits for me is that it's just not always your face, right? And that's part of the reason why the prompts are designed the way that they are for this particular project, is that taking a photo of your feet, I count that as a self-portrait. Taking a photo of your hands engaged in something else, using a tripod or whatever to hold something in your hands and take a shot of that. That's a self-portrait, right? Self-portraits don't have to just be your face. And that's one of the reasons why, like I said, the prompts are designed the way they are for this project. Another tip or reminder about this for you perfectionists out there who may, like me, sign up for that, or you might be trying to get off of that list, is the reminder that the goal with taking photos of yourself and embarking on a project like this is not the perfect photo. Really, for me, the greatest joy that has come out of projects like this or other self-portrait things that I've embarked on in the past is the creative joy that comes from experimenting and comes from giving yourself that space to play around. What happens if? What happens if I do this? What happens if I lay on the ground? What happens if I lay on the ground and hold the camera up above my face? What happens if I do this or that or the other? Like, there's all of these different opportunities for you to play around, and that is really how we learn and grow as photographers, whether we're doing self-portraits or not, right? That opportunity to practice and play. And the best thing about this now, in the way that we live now, is that we have immediate feedback, right? We can immediately see on our phone, or we can immediately see on the back of our camera what the resulting image was, which gives us information that then we can then adjust, we can move things around, we can change the lighting situation if possible. Like, all of those different things come up because we're able to immediately see what the resulting image is. And that's one of the big ways that we learn as photographers. Another tip that I included in here is the idea of using this as an opportunity to really capture life as it is right now versus how we wish it would be. This is kind of just, an opportunity to live life like that, I would say too. But with self-portraits especially, there are lots of opportunities for you to take pictures with things, maybe things around your house or things that are important to you. Remembering and keeping in mind the whole time that as we take pictures of ourselves, and as we, any sort of picture that we take, there's a story behind it, right? So thinking a little bit about, what is the story that I actually want to tell with this photo? If I am going to do feet, I'm thinking about, what is the story about my feet right now that I could tell? It could be dirty feet out in the garden. For me, that's something that's happening and that's real in my life right now. And I think last year when I did this project, we did it in February, and my feet picture ended up being a photo of my, the bottom part of my legs with rain boots on out in the yard. So thinking about, what are your feet doing right now? And this isn't like, oh my God, I need to have a pedicure so I can take a picture of my feet. You can have your shoes on. It doesn't have to, again, think broader. It doesn't have to, it does not require you to paint your toenails before you take the picture, but really honing in and thinking about, what is the story? What is the story of my feet right now? What is the story of my hands right now? And I think with feet and hands especially, one tip that I always like to suggest is, what do you wish you knew about maybe your parents or a grandparent or someone else? Like, what was a piece of their story that you wished that you could read about them? So maybe I'm thinking of an example of, like, maybe my grandmother, here's an example. My grandmother, my paternal grandmother, loved stained glass. And I really wish that I had a picture of her hands working in stained glass and doing that process. Just thinking about it right now and bringing it up, I can remember being a small kid and going into the condo that she and my grandpa lived in, and she had like a sunroom, kind of a sun deck in this condo, and that's where all her stained glass was. And I have I feel like I can kind of remember her hands. I was really small when she passed away, so I didn't, get to know her as a more adult kind of person. But so that, thinking about that in terms of that would be a picture I would love to have, with something of her working with stained glass. So maybe it's a picture of you working with memory keeping products, or maybe it's a picture of you washing your hands, or maybe it's a picture, and it can be more than just your hands too, right? You can include other parts of your body, but this, the invitation here is to focus on the hands or the feet or the other things that we have here. So again, face forward, eyes closed. What is the story? When eyes closed, as you're trying to brainstorm, think about, why do I close my eye? When are times that I close my eyes? I close my eyes when I'm sleeping. I close my eyes probably when I'm sighing. I close my eyes when I'm praying. I close my eyes when the sun is too bright. I close my eyes when I just want to feel the sun on my face, right? So thinking story first, even in a project that's like this, like self-portrait project, thinking about what kind of story would you want to tell first, that can lead you down a path of identifying the photos that you might want to play around with and get curious about. All right, another tip for me, that's really photography, just general photography tip, but also very much related to self-portraits, is the light. Like, the light is one of the most important pieces in photography, and beginning to really start paying more attention to where light is coming from can have a really big impact on the photos that you take. So number one, identifying where is the light coming from. Is the light source, you know, fake lights? Like in my office here, I have lights set up, fill lights, whatever you want to call them. So a lot of times the light source is the sun, or the light source, maybe you have like really harsh overhead lighting. So what happens if you turn off the lights and only have the light source from a window? I've taken lots of pictures of Simon, my oldest son specifically, in his bedroom with his reading light. So there is, that's where the light source is coming from in that particular situation. I just took a photo of Aaron, my husband, the other night when we were laying in bed, and he was looking at his phone, and the phone is lighting his face. And so kind of thinking, you know, within self-portraits, it's a little more challenging because you have more things to think about, but always paying attention to where is the light coming from. And again, being curious, what happens if I move my body? So if I start out with, I'm gonna take a picture right here of my face forward, you know, I'm lit, there's light coming here, there's light coming here. It's probably gonna be fairly even, but it might be a little bit dark on this side because there isn't a light source over here, you know, and it's gonna look different if I take the picture from right here with the light in behind me than it is when I stand right here. So again, this is an opportunity to learn about our cameras and learn about what happens when we move our bodies around to, you know, what happens to the lighting situation, what happens to the overall feel of the picture when you do that. So again, I think I'm gonna say this a million times, the opportunity for curiosity and the opportunity for play within this self-portrait project, I think is one of the best benefits and one of the most fun parts of the project. All right, and then the last tip I wanna talk about is the idea that self-portraits can be challenging because of our own personal self-talk. So as you embark on this project or any sort of self-portrait project, I really want to encourage you to listen, like take the opportunity to listen to the ways that you are talking to yourself. Are you being kind to yourself? Are you having unrealistic expectations of yourself? Are you being unkind to yourself, right? Are you saying, I don't like my body right now, so I don't want to take a picture of it, rather than seeing it as an opportunity to embrace all of the things that are good about you right now, all the things that are beautiful about you right now. I think that this project can be a very, very powerful opportunity for self-love. And I think we could all use a little bit more of that. And it can be really hard. It's very vulnerable. And again, you don't have to share this with other people. And it can be something that you just do for yourself, but it's part of the practice of loving ourselves. And it's this opportunity to see ourselves reflected back, you know, and what are the pieces of ourselves right now, and how can we treat ourselves with a little bit more loving kindness is something that I always love to bring into this project as well. All right, so those are just some things to think about related to self-portraits, whether you're participating in the Pieces of Me project or you're just wanting to include some more photos of yourself in your projects. You may not have kids and you may be a memory keeper who just tells stories about yourself. It's probably pretty likely that you've already encountered or had the opportunity to take some pictures of yourself, but it's also possible that you have remained behind your camera. So this week I want to invite everybody to come out from behind the camera and let's get ourselves in the pictures for this project, for our own stories, and potentially for the future as well, to show our daughters, our sons, and other people that we can be loving and kind to ourselves. And the photography is really fun. So get curious, have fun, and we'll see you guys back here again next week.